Thank you for listening to this podcast from TRE, Talk Radio Europe, your voice in Spain and around the world. For more information, please visit tre.radio.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney. Well, we have discovered who doesn't read his memos. From the production department, him telling you that the BBC was going to be on between now and 9 o'clock, him being Bob James. Anyway, you are welcome to Live on Eire, the Irish programme. I'm with you through until 9 o'clock. Ger Sweeney is my name, as Pat Costello just told you. By the way, a big thank you to Bob James for looking after you for the last hour. Spain today, he did mention that he will be talking to Hannah tomorrow morning, but you'd hear his dulcet tones at that stage. The what have we got for you? The Spanish news, that's right, and throughout the day tomorrow as well. And of course, he will be back, as far as I know, because I read my memos. He'll be back to you tomorrow between 6 and 7. Thanks a million, Bob, and have yourself a good evening. Now, good evening, I hope. We will have you and I together for the next 2 hours. What have we got for you? Well, in the first hour, what I'm going to do is bring you some news, some current news about Ireland and from Ireland, but I'm also going to bring you some news of maybe around 1992 or thereabouts, because the state papers have been released. And I'm going to give you a couple of the stories that were mentioned back in 1992, and the papers had been put away. Now, there's also newer papers out that relate to Northern Ireland, and the reason that they've been released ahead of the 30 years that is the norm is because Britain released theirs, I think, is 15 or 20 years, so we're trying to catch up just to be in line with that. Don't see why we should, but anyway, we are all the way through, and just so that the British version of Northern Ireland stories matches with the Irish and vice versa. So there'll be one or two of those in there as well. Alrighty. Now, as always, if you would like to get in contact with me, you're more than welcome to do so. I'm not in studio. I am in Ireland, so I cannot accept telephone calls, but I do have access to the Twitter machine. The WhatsApp machine. So you can send a WhatsApp message if you'd like to +34 645 99 67 95, or you can send an email to studio@tre.radio. You can also send an email to my own email address, which is Ger, G-E-R, @tre.radio, whichever suits yourself. All right? Had you a nice Christmas? Aren't we going to miss all the daft ads, aren't we? For the perfumes and the aftershaves and things like that we get bombarded with up to Christmas. We're going to miss those big time, aren't we? We are. What else did we miss? Miss the turkey. Although I think we have a small bit left. I think there's a bit of ham left as well, which is great. It's always nice to have the turkey and ham sandwiches, turkey and ham thingamajiggy salad, and curries and things like that. Of course, in Spain, Christmas is far from over, because we've got the Three Kings on the 6th of January, so that's a little bit away. So hopefully you got over the festive season all right. Well, the part that we're at, and we're rapidly heading towards 2023. In the second hour of this evening's programme, I have a beautiful story for you. We're calling it Cuddles from Nerka. And I've told you this story before. It's about an Irish lady by the name of Mary Custers McCarthy. You are no stranger to her. She's been interviewed by me twice on the programme. And Mary decided that she wanted to do something for the children in Ukraine following the outbreak of the war. And she gathered about 2,000 cuddly toys, or cuddles as she calls them, to send to children in Ukraine, but couldn't get them there. No, she couldn't get them there. So she's going to tell us the story, and we'll tell you how she got them, and we'll introduce you to the people who brought them to Ukraine. All right? So that's Cuddles from Nerka, and that's in the second hour of the programme. It's a lovely story. So again, I'll be asking you to have the cup of tea ready so that you can sit down and just be organised and enjoy the story. A bit of bad news and a bit of good news to start the day with. So let's give you the bad news first. And if anybody is familiar with Irish television from the 1990s, you will remember the name Frank Clark. Well, the death has occurred of the television host and artist Frank Clark, best known for his TV series Simply Painting. The 84-year-old Dubliner passed away yesterday after a long illness, his family said. His television show ran on RTE in Ireland in the early 1990s for 8 years and was aired all across the globe, running in countries such as the United States, Australia, and all across Europe. So you never know, you might be familiar with him. He also recorded a series in China. His friends today described him as a man who loved painting and teaching. Mr. Clark took up painting as a hobby after retiring early from a career that included dress designing and property development. According to his biography on his website, he joined a painting group, but left after he was told that he did not have any talent. Like me in the radio. However, he was determined to pursue his hobby and launched what he called his have some more fun approach to painting, which meant learning the very basics. And his first book became a bestseller, outselling all other art teaching books combined in its first year in Ireland. And it led to his first television series, which was shown on over 250 television stations worldwide. So there we go. Frank Clark, 84 years, passed away yesterday. Yesterday, Goreva on him. But what I think is a lovely story, I'm not going to tell you who it was, but a friend of mine in Spain had plans to go to the UK for Christmas to be with family and friends. And circumstances meant that he had to change his plans. Okay, we won't go into those circumstances. And he thought, you know what, rather than ringing or emailing, EasyJet was the plane, the airline that he was booked with. I'll go to Malaga Airport. I'll go to the EasyDesk jet and I will tell them why I can't go and see if there's anything they can do for me. So when he got to the desk, the lady or the gentleman that he was dealing with at EasyJet said, no, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. However, I do feel quite sorry for you because of the circumstances. So just wait there for a minute. And the manager came out, or the supervisor, whoever the most senior person was on duty, and said, look, we can't really do it, but I'm going to do it for you. And said, but you need to pick a date now. Pick a date and we'll transfer you to that date, no cost. So he did. And he said off to the UK sometime in the new year. And I just thought it's such a nice story. It's a Christmassy kind of a story. And it kind of proves that, you know, if you go and you present yourself in person and tell the story, when someone can look into your eyes and see you're telling the truth, you just might get somewhere person to person. So well done, EasyJet. And airlines come in for a lot of stick. And I just thought, you know what, let's just give them a mention and congratulate them. So there you are. Nice story. Talking of airlines, the CEO of the Irish Tourism Industry Confederation, ITIC, Owen O'Mara Walsh, has said that it will be 2026 before Irish tourism sector returns to pre-pandemic levels. Mr. O'Mara Walsh said that there are a number of challenges facing the sector for the next number of years, and that while they made great strides in that direction this year, there is still a long road ahead. He said the tourism report for 2022 was much better than anticipated. Around 7 million international tourists came to Ireland this year, according to research from the ITIC. Now, that equates to 73% recovery compared to the pre-pandemic peak of 2019. Of the 7 million international tourists in 2022, the ITIC estimates that 2.6 million came from mainland Europe, with 2.4 million coming from Britain, 1.5 million coming from North America. Just less than 500,000 people came from long-haul markets. Mr. O'Mara said the tourism is very vulnerable to external factors and that next year is going to be no different. He said there are a number of factors, including the energy crisis and hyperinflation, some of them beyond our control, some within our control. The ITIC estimates that 28% of all tourism beds in regional Ireland are currently contracted to government for humanitarian reasons, which could potentially cost the sector €1 billion in lost earnings next year. He said it could lead to a shortage of beds in 2023, which could have a knock-on impact in towns and villages. From a humanitarian perspective, is perfectly understandable. However, if that situation is still the case in March or April or May of next year, as we get into the tourist season, we are going to have a problem, he said. Now, Mr. O'Mara Walsh said that the Taoiseach should take a lead on the accommodation crisis for refugees because it stretches across all of society. I think the government, he said, has got to have a department of the Taoiseach-led approach to this. I think it's no longer good enough for the government to just say that this Department of Children problem, because this straddles all parts of society and indeed the economy, but particularly the tourism economy. So I think the Department of Taoiseach should lead out on it, he said. I think the tourism and hospitality sector has a role to play, but it cannot be the primary accommodation provider. Now, so there we have it. I saw something on Twitter where that was remarked, the fact that it hasn't recovered and it won't until 2026, the tourism market I'm referring to. And somebody had written down underneath it, had sent in a kind of an answer to it and basically said, well, look, for as long as it costs more to have 3 days in Killarney than it does to have a week in Madrid, then we're not going anywhere, are we? Exactly. And the prices this year were astronomical when it came to the likes of car rental, came to the likes of hotel accommodation and things like that. So I suppose that needs to be addressed as well. Indeed it does. We wish them well though, because the tourism sector is a hugely important part of what we do in Ireland. So hopefully that will be rectified in the coming year. Fingers crossed. All the way from Bangor in Northern Ireland, that is the wonderful sound of Two Door Cinema Club. That's a song called Wonderful Life. All the music that you'll hear on the programme, the majority of it anyway, you will have heard before, because there's no new releases really. Nothing happening. And so yeah, you've heard that one at least once before. I know that for sure. We will take a quick break so because we have a few to do, and then we'll delve into the state papers. I mentioned that we were going to be doing that, so we'll take a look at some of the stories from 1992, shall we?
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Nice to have your company on this Wednesday evening, the 28th of December, our last Live on Eire for 2022. It was a year of high political drama. Charlie Haughey was toppled by Albert Reynolds. The X case made abortion a hot political issue. This in turn complicated the ratification of the Maastricht Treaty. Voters were asked to pass judgment on 3 proposed constitutional amendments relating to abortion. And they also had to elect a new government after the Fianna Fáil Progressive Democrats coalition collapsed because of the Taoiseach's evidence to the Beef Tribunal. Now, the confidential government files from 1992 have been released, giving us insights into exactly what was going on behind closed doors during that tumultuous 12 months. Over the next wee while, we're going to have see the release of stories from 1992 as well as from other years. The papers are drip feeding us, and the likes of RTE drip feeding all of the information to us. Anyway, we've also got, as I mentioned earlier, more recent documents relating to Northern Ireland and Anglo-Irish relations. They've been released to match the release of British records. All right, as I mentioned, one of the big revelations from the 1992 documents is just how strained relations were between government buildings in Oris and Uachtaráin. That's where the president lives. Mary Robinson was the president. She was elected in November of 1990. She was determined to expand the role of the president. Government officials were determined to stop her. Like something out of Yes Minister, isn't it? It is. Even her trip to famine-stricken Somalia, which was widely praised around the world and even led to suggestions that she should receive the Nobel Peace Prize, caused tension within the government. The government was led by Taoiseach Albert Reynolds, who took office in February after unseating Charles Haughey. Reynolds secured his place in history later in his term by brokering the first IRA ceasefire. But his initial months in office were less stellar, and he was to provoke the collapse of the Fianna Fáil's coalition with the Progressive Democrats later in the year with provocative testimony to the Beef Tribunal. He was widely derided when he told the Beef Tribunal that he didn't like lengthy briefing documents. He said, "I operate a department on the basis of no long files, no long reports. Put it on a single sheet, and if I need more information, I know where to get it." The newly released state papers show that this preference, or his preference for this, were taken seriously by officials who noted the Taoiseach is not keen on going through even relatively brief steering or background notes. Accordingly, it is best to keep the briefing to concise speaking points on the basis of which the Taoiseach can be given advance briefing orally. While some sneered at Albert Reynolds as one-page man as a result, it was actually a very effective way of avoiding getting swamped in unnecessary detail. And in fact, Reynolds proved that he could master his brief particularly well when it came to the Battle of the 8 Million at the Edinburgh Summit in December of 1992. We've dealt with that previously. If I'm not mistaken, it could have been when I was talking to Ambassador Donald Denham. It may have been earlier in the year. But anyway, one particular story that took my fancy was there were long faces in Taoiseach Charles Haughey's office when 7 desert Arabian horses gifted to Ireland by a wealthy American art dealer turned out to be duds. Now, Mr. Haughey would have you convinced that he knew exactly what he was talking about when it came to horses. And Mr. Haughey had the horses imported to Ireland and brought to the National Stud back in 1989 in the hope of breeding them. A special ceremony was arranged at which the Taoiseach would inspect the horses and formally take possession of them following the gift to the nation from the late Mr. Vincent Melzack, a wealthy art dealer whose wife had Irish connections. Now, Mr. Haughey decided that the horses described them as magnificent animals in a glowing letter of thanks when he first saw their photographs. But experts at the National Stud took a different view when they viewed them up close. Far from being magnificent, they were in fact quite inferior, according to an expert assessment. The president of the British Arab Horse Society, Finn McGuinness, reported on a range of defects in the animals. One had a rather shapeless neck, another a bad head, while a third had weak hind legs. 2 of the horses were described as quite nice, ordinary animals, but were not up to standard of a breeding stallion. The manager of the National Stud, John Clark, told officials that the stallions gifted by Mr. Melzack would not have any role to play in the stud's plans, and it would be totally uneconomic to stand them there. In the circumstances, Taoiseach Charles Haughey cancelled his plans for the high-profile acceptance and inspection ceremony at the National Stud, deciding that to go and view inferior animals would be an embarrassment. Another one I like. 1978, 11-year-olds were layabouts. Starsky and Hutch Hawaii Five-0 and Brady Bunch were the top TV choices of 11-year-olds in 1978. In fact, I was 11 in 1978. That's this whole thing about the Brady Bunch and Hawaii Five-0 and Starsky and Hutch, according to a document which was retained by the government of the day. A copy of the Irish Broadcasting Review appears in state files released to the National Archives. It features a survey of 720 children aged 11 years old, from whom, perhaps unsurprisingly, television viewing was their most popular leisure activity. So what else would they do? There was no Facebook in those days. The only home-produced programme that featured in the top 20 choices was The Reardons. Imagine, I suppose 11-year-olds were watching that because their parents were watching it and there was only one television in the house. Almost half of the children surveyed only had access to one channel. There you go. They were surveyed over a 3-day period and cited their top 3 leisure activities as watching television, outings, and lying about, for which they were presumably referred to as layabouts. There you go. Just a couple of the bits and pieces from the papers which were released over the last couple of days. When I hear the opening on this particular song or the intro, it reminds me of a Eurovision song type thing. Doesn't it? Aye. It is live on Eire. It's the Irish programme. I'm Ger Sweeney, with you through until 9.
Bless me, mother, for you know I sin. I spent all my money on these brittle things. Bless the kingdom that we've built on sand. All the world right there in your hand. Bless the blackbird in the hawthorn tree. She waits for the blooming of the red berry. The battle of the hawthorn will never be won. You're as beautiful in winter as you are in sun. Oh, the battle of the hawthorn tree. Oh, the battle of the hawthorn. Through the shivering fields with your fresh pressed thistle and St. Bridget's cross, the lily white sky, pillow of moss. My love, she gave to me the jewels of her mind, and I hung them on the branches, frozen in time. Survival when we're all one blood. Bless the blackbird in the hawthorn tree. She waits for the blooming of her destiny. The battle of the hawthorn will never be won. Black skeleton and winter, white wing in sun. My love, she gave to me the juice of her mind, and I hung them on the branches, frozen in time. The battle of the hawthorn trees. The battle of the hawthorn trees.
That is Jack Lukeman, Battle of the Hawthorn Trees. That was released back around, I don't know, was it in October or thereabouts? Maybe November. No, it was October. It does. And when I hear that, it puts me in mind of the Peaky Blinders theme song, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. What was the red right hand, wasn't it? Don't know whether same to you or not, but it does for me when I hear it. That's kind of what comes to mind. I'm going to take a quick break. Don't forget, if you would like to get in contact for any reason, you're more than welcome to do so. Our WhatsApp machine is cranked up and is working. +34 645 99 67 95 is the number, as you probably know. Or if you'd like, you can send an email to studio@tre.radio, or send it to my own if you like, Ger, Ger, @tre.radio. Whichever one suits you will be absolutely fine and dandy with me. Let's do that break, so come back to me in just a moment, please.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Welcome back to the programme. Nice to have your company. Wednesday evening is the final Live on Eire for 2022. Hard to imagine. Where did that year go, huh? Serious tensions. I mentioned this to you when I was doing the introduction, talking about the release of the state papers from 1992, with serious tensions between the government and President Mary Robinson over her role and independence are revealed in newly released state papers. Mrs. Robinson won the November 1990 presidential election, promising a more outspoken and active approach to the role, which soon brought her into conflict with the government. In April of 1991, 4 months into her term, Attorney General John Murray wrote a legal opinion for government, claiming that the Constitution prevented the President from expressing views in conflict with government policy, or which might be seen as preempting a government decision. Any other interpretation would inevitably bring the office of President into conflict with the government of the day on questions of policy, which is what the Constitution seeks to prevent, Mr. Murray warned. 2 months later, Senior Counsel Dermot Leeson, himself later to serve as an Attorney General, went even further in legal advice for Murray, who was the then Attorney General. He argued that the President had no right to say anything in public without government permission. The constitutional scheme clearly envisages that the final word on presidential pronouncements should rest with the government. President Robinson told Taoiseach Charles Haughey that she had extreme difficulty in accepting such a narrow and restrictive interpretation of the role of president. While she agreed that the president should not get involved in matters of government policy and should always take care to avoid any public conflict with the government, she pointed out that she had a mandate for developing and representational role of the office. In government buildings, officials complained that the President was giving media interviews without informing the government, never mind getting permission first. They worried that presidential actions or statements which can be interpreted politically will inevitably lead to conflict with the government. And then came the X case, in which the Attorney General sought a High Court injunction to prevent a 14-year-old rape victim leaving the country to have an abortion. Addressing women's groups in Waterford a few days after the news broke, President Robinson said, "I hope we have the courage, which we have not always had, to face up to and look squarely at and to see this is a problem we have got to resolve." The Taoiseach spokesperson tried to calm the resulting media storm, saying that the President was echoing the government's concerns on the issue, but the Assistant Secretary to the government, Frank Murray, disagreed, saying that the President had created a situation of controversy by her remarks. Then the following month, gosh, she was awful trouble, wasn't she? She was. The following month, there was a further controversy when the President was reported to have invited the British Queen to visit Ireland. Taoiseach Albert Reynolds phoned her to convey his serious concern. The President claimed that the report didn't reflect what she had said, and said that she had no wish whatsoever to interfere in political matters. But the Taoiseach emphasised the seriousness of what had happened, and even raised the possibility that presidential speeches and statements should be vetted by officials. Another clash loomed when it was reported that a deputation from the unemployed organisation was to be received by the President. Officials viewed the group as troublemakers, and the President was advised to be more selective in the groups she met. And when the President sought position papers from the Northern Ireland talks, some of which had been already leaked to the media, she was rebuffed. Officials explained that the ground rules agreed for the talks provide that such documentation should not be made available to persons other than those involved in the talks process, and that this continues to apply notwithstanding any leaks. There's a lot more. There is. But I just thought, you know what? That's enough. President Robinson firmly getting her feet in under the table and causing a bit of trouble. But she kind of set out to definitely do something all right, didn't she? Yeah. She achieved it too. There's no doubt about that, as the fella says. Right, let's go. And let's take some more music. I think we'll take this one this time. It's one that you've heard before. It comes from Gillian Chute. Lovely song. It's called Secret Sign.
Climbing trees, even though the branches graze my knees, it's the only way to see the stars on a night like this, before my mother calls me home. Something in me knows it's now or never, 'cause your life can pass you by if you hold out for a secret sign. They say slip away while you're waiting for the right time. Dead end job, another day, another telling of. All I've ever done is keep my head down. Not this time, I'm gonna make a change. Something in me knows it's now or never, 'cause your life can pass you by if you hold out for a secret sign. They say slip away while you're waiting for the right time. But if you're brave enough and you're strong enough, you can let your heart lead the way. If you're brave enough and you're strong enough, you can let your heart lead the way. 'Cause your life can pass you by if you hold out for a secret sign. Days they slip away while you're waiting for the right time. Waiting for the right time. Something in you knows it's now or never.
That's lovely. That is Gillian Chute. That's a song that's called Secret Sign. Hospitals are stretched to their limits around the country. The Irish Nurses and Midwives Association has said, saying that it has never recorded this level of overcrowding at this time of the year before. The organisation said that all hospitals, large and small, are struggling and staff are finding it difficult to deliver safe care. The INMO wants public and private hospitals to act as one to relieve the pressure and prevent the situation getting worse. Now, Phil Nihey from the INMO said that any emergency measure that is required must be taken immediately, because it's if this gets worse, it will be impossible to deal with it in any safe way. She said normally we wouldn't see figures as high as today. 570 people sick enough to be admitted to hospital and not enough beds. Miss Nihey said traditionally you wouldn't see this until early in the new year. We've never, she said, recorded figures like this at this level of overcrowding. Now, the Health Service Executive has agreed to support GPs to run additional clinics during the current period of high pressure on the health system. It follows talks between the HSE, supported by the Department of Health, and Irish Medical Association. The Irish Medical Association said that there is significant surge in patient demand for GPs because the prevalence of influenza, COVID and other respiratory illnesses. In a letter to GPs, the Health Service executive said that the current exceptional pressure on them and acute hospitals is expected to last a number of weeks. The measures include supports and grants to enable them to extend existing clinics or run additional clinics, although both the HSE and IMO said that they recognise that not all practices will be in a position to do this. The IMO says GPs may schedule extended or additional clinics on maybe weekday evenings from 5 to 7 p.m. and between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. on Saturdays. The organisation said that there has been a significant surge in demand for GP care due to the prevalence of influenza, COVID-19 and other respiratory illnesses. The latest figures from the Public Health or the Health Protection Surveillance Centre shows that there were 737 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in hospital as of 8 a.m. today, 35 of whom were in intensive care. Now, the president of the Irish Association for Emergency Medicine, Dr. Fergal Hickey, said that the current pressure on emergency departments is the latest in a series of worsening situations. Speaking on RTE's Drive Time programme earlier today, Dr. Hickey, who is also a former consultant at Sligo University Hospital, said that Ireland is entering the clinical winter of 22-23 with too few hospital beds, and the dogs on the streets know that. Emergency departments, he said, have been under pressure for months on end, and this is just the latest in a series of worsening situations. Dr. Hickey added that Ireland has 2.8 acute hospital beds per 1,000 of the population, while the OECD average is 4.3. So there you go. Things not looking good on the health front at the moment, and just being out and about, mainly last week. I didn't get out and about too much. It was today. Actually, today I had not lunch, but it was meant to be lunch, but it turned out not to be. It was just coffee and a biscuit with Colm Flynn. If you remember, I spoke to Colm, who is based in Rome most of the time now, but we had a chat earlier in the year, and we were chatting about tonight's programme, and he said to be sure and pass on his good regards to listeners. So there you go. Anyway, out and about, everybody and anybody seems to have either a chest cold or a head cold or something like that, or flu or things. So yeah, it's a difficult time, and hopefully things will see themselves right sooner rather than later. How are we doing on time? We're great. I see that a planning application for the 100 million euro redevelopment of St. Stephen's Green shopping centre has been declared invalid by Dublin City Council. Earlier this month, Davy entity DTDL Limited lodged plans for the rejuvenation of the Dublin shopping centre. It would see the centre get a complete facelift, provide an additional 21,419 square metres in gross floor space, and include a reconfigured mall opening onto St. Stephen's Green. A report lodged with the scheme stated that the most retail units at the outdated and underperforming shopping centre are too small. It said the smaller units at the upper levels trade poorly and can operate only on short-term levels or leases. However, the council has now determined the application to be invalid on two grounds, and the DTDL Limited must now recommence the planning process. The council has found that the notices for the planning application do not comply with several articles under the planning and development regulations. The council has stated that the description of the scheme is insufficient for the information of the public, and that the full nature and extent of the development must be stated in the site notice and new newspaper notices. The council also said that it is the applicant's responsibility to ensure the notices adequately describe the works proposed in the drawing submitted with the application. Went on to say that also declared that certain drawings are insufficient where the submitted 2nd to 7th proposed floor plans do not specify the intended proposed use of their floors. The scheme is to add 2 stories to the existing 6-story landmark shopping centre. The St. Stephen's Green shopping centre was first opened in 1988. I remember it was the best thing since the slice pan when it opened. Oh, it was. The Davy entity has drawn up the plans after paying a reported €175 million for the centre on behalf of its clients back in 2019. Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it kind of that the council have decided that it's invalid, and not just that it needs further work. They just said this is invalid. You got to start again. Interesting. Will we take a piece of music? I think we should. What'll I play? Do you know what I'll play? I'll play this. I haven't played it in a couple of weeks, and it's lovely. It comes from James Vincent McMorrow. It's a song called Hurricane. Lovely little rhythm to this as well. Enjoy.
to our friend's house near 42nd Street. They had burned it down. Just started running like a hurricane. Next thing I know, we're at the fast train, one that never works. The second it starts raining. If you're bored, you should say now, before the sky turns gray and we're left underground. We'll have to dig a tunnel to escape. Oh, my love, just started running like a hurricane. We'll wake you up in the middle of the night, make you laugh, make you cry, make you think about your whole life. Nobody here got that magic anymore. I got lines, I got jokes, I got time enough to tell it all. I think it's alright, I think it's okay. You make my heart beat like a hurricane, like a hurricane. We hit the coast, sun it goes down. Thinking of the dead, they never stick around. No parade, there's no crowd out. It's just these neon signs, paper thrown around. Make it hard as hell to navigate. But then you say that all we need is car suspension, a little money and off attention, someone to live for, maybe someone to mention how we look so much better when light it turns gold. While the light is here we celebrate. Oh my love, you got me running like a hurricane. We'll wake you up in the middle of the night, make you laugh, make you cry, make you think about your whole life. Nobody here got that magic anymore. I got lines, I got jokes, I got time enough to tell it all. I think it's alright, I think it's okay. You make my heart beat like a hurricane. Now everybody's feeling angry, and I remember feeling the same way. All around me geese fell slowly, and all the clocks they started changing shape. Just love me, it's okay. You make my heart beat like a hurricane. We'll wake you up in the middle of the night, make you laugh, make you cry, make you think about your whole life. Nobody here got that magic anymore. I got lines, I got jokes, I got time enough to tell it all. I think it's alright, I think it's okay. You make my heart beat like a hurricane. Like a hurricane. Like a
James Vincent McMorrow. That's a song that's called Hurricane. Nice song. I like the rhythm in that. It's kind of laid back a little bit, but it's a little bit upbeaty as well. Make up your mind, Ger. All right, let's do a quick break. I have one more to do in this hour, and I'll be back to you in just a couple of moments.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
Nice to have you back again. And I hope you'll stay with me until 9 o'clock. Two things I want to tell you about in the second hour of the programme. I'm going to introduce you to Mary Custers McCarthy, who is the person that got Cuddles from Nerka together. All right, what's Cuddles from Nerka? It's where she sent cuddly toys to children in the Ukraine. And it was against all odds, and she just had a hugely difficult time getting them to Ukraine. But she was rescued, and we'll tell you who rescued her, and we'll talk to the people that rescued her and got those cuddles to the children in Nerka. That's coming up in the second hour of the programme. It's a story that'll run for about a half an hour. It's I conducted the interviews already when I was in Nerca back in October. It was November, wasn't it? It was November. And I sat with Mari, and then I did 2 other interviews subsequently in relation to it, and they were done by Zoom. So I kind of put it all together like a jigsaw puzzle, and I'll be playing it for you this evening. So it's about half an hour. So get the kettle organised, get whatever you need sorted, just so that you can sit down and, as we used to say in the old days, take the phone off the hook so no one can ring you, and just enjoy the story of Cuddles from Nerca. Be nice. All right. Let's have a dip into some other stories from 1992. Back in, 92 and so on. There's other years as well because of the Anglo-Irish story and the Northern Ireland story. So 95 is what this particular story is about. In 1995, while the first IRA ceasefire was still in place, FBI allegations that the IRA was trying to buy weapons in the United States almost put paid to a fundraising trip by Gerry Adams. The White House said it would be difficult in the light of the claims to overrule objections by the FBI and the Department of Justice to granting Adams a visa. But President Bill Clinton decided the visit was important as a confidence-building measure and ordered that a visa should be granted. British Prime Minister John Major was so annoyed that he subsequently refused to take a call from President Clinton. The British were also annoyed at the prominent role played by the American ambassador to Dublin, Jean Kennedy Smith. The British Cabinet Secretary at the time, Sir Robin Butler, was one of those who resented the ambassador. He asked Irish official Sean Donnellan if there was nothing we could do to keep her in check. The things that they commit to paper. Can you imagine what they say on the phones? And of course, they could be recorded these days, couldn't they? And the term fake news wasn't widely used in 1996. It wasn't used at all. But Estonia blamed Russian misinformation for claims that the IRA were buying weapons in the Baltic state. In May of 1996, Russian news agency TASS claimed, do you remember TASS? Yeah. Claimed that the IRA was buying former Soviet arms from Estonia, including high-powered sniper rifles, heavy machine guns and explosives. The story cited sources in the Russian security agency, the FSB, formerly the KGB. The Estonian ambassador in Moscow assured his Irish counterpart that there was no truth in the story, blaming it on the poor state of Russian-Estonian relations. Irish officials decided not to say anything in order to avoid getting caught up in the row between Russia and Estonia when the temperature in these countries' relations is already high, in inverted commas. So there you have it. All right, I've got more stories to tell you from the 1992 period and indeed 95, 96 in there as well in relation to Northern Ireland and that. I'll give you more details shortly. Also tell you about how Bushmills, the whiskey makers, they were boycotted both sides of the border for different reasons. I'll tell you about that shortly. But first, let's take a listen to CMAT. Here's Lonely. Beautiful song.
But if there was a God, I'd be killing him. But ponies God, when I have, I'll be Williams. And who needs boys with these voices in my head? But I'd say I'm useless, I eat too much bread. Well, I left you overnight in the cold, strange air. But I'm running out of time to learn how to care. But I'm so lonely, and I don't have any real friends. I'm so lonely, other people I just mean to end. I'm so lonely, and I'm eating in a food hall, just watching other people, and it's so cold. One more chicken roll won't kill me. One more novel, one less party. One
CMAT, C-M-A-T, that stands for Ciara Mary Alice Thompson. A nice song called Lonely. You've heard that on the programme before. All right, we're about 7 seconds away from a news update. We're going to the news centre for that. I shall see you in 2 minutes' time.
Talk Radio Europe.
Your voice in Spain.
Welcome back to the programme. I mentioned to you earlier that I was going to tell you two things, and I told you one thing, and that was what's coming up in this hour of the programme, and that is Cuddles from Nerka. More details. I've given you the details, and you'll hear the story itself and the people involved in this hour. All right? As I said, it's a lovely story, so get yourself organised and get yourself sitting down and take the phone off the hook, as they used to say. The second thing I wanted to tell you that I forgot, because I do ramble on sometimes, is that I'll be with you on New Year's Day as well. Yes, I'll be here. I think it's 1 o'clock to 3. Yes. 1 o'clock. It was to be a different time, and then it was a different time again. No, it's 1 o'clock to 3 in the afternoon. I'm going to be with you. So I hope you can join me. It's not going to be an Irish programme. There isn't a whole lot of news around. I don't know whether I have anyone to talk to, but we're sure between the two of us, we'll make an old session of it, and we'll figure something out. All right. And that's between 1 and 3. It'll be laid back and it'll be relaxing because nobody wants to go too mad on New Year's Day. So I'm looking forward to that. If you can join me, it will be absolutely brilliant. And in the meantime, if you want to specifically request a New Year's Day message, or you want to wish anybody Happy New Year, you can send me an email, and I'll include it. Ger, GER@TRE.radio, GER@TRE.radio, and I will include it. Tell me kind of roughly what time as well, and I'll be able to organise that. All right. So look, it'll be a bit of fun anyway. That's what I wanted to tell you. Let me remind you that if you want to take part in this programme, or if you want to pass a comment or ask a question, you're more than welcome to do that. You can send a WhatsApp to +34 645 99 67 95, or you can email studio@tre.radio, or my own email, Ger. GER@TRE.radio will do fine as well. All right. With you until 9 o'clock. Christmas kind of arrived really well and on time the past week for the residents of the most southerly island off the Irish coast, with the installation of a communications mast. That's what Santa Claus brought them. Residents at Ilan Clare, now that's Clare Island, isn't it, can now make a phone call or video call or access the internet from the comfort of their homes without having to drive around the island looking for a signal. That's part of the overall plan for Ilan Clare, which lies off the West Cork coast, to achieve connectivity, sustainability, and to provide housing for future generations. The island, which is 12 kilometres off the coast of Cork, is home to about 120 people. Until now, it would have been commonplace for the residents of this Gaeltacht community to leave their homes and drive or walk around the island in order to find a signal to use their phone or internet services. But the installation of a communications mast has revolutionised the way people live and work on the island, along with the development of a tech hub. That's GTEIC, which I presume is the Irish for tech, TECH. So a tech club hub, I beg your pardon. Also an electric local link transport system. The possibilities for Ilan Clare's future seem endless. Well, I'm delighted. And I hope that they will be very happy, and that'll bring them lots of happiness and lots of good news and good things over their cellular work and their Wi-Fi network as well. So there you go. Well done. Will I take a piece? Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll take a piece of music right now, and then we'll get back to giving you a couple of stories from the state papers that were released over the last couple of days, and will continue to be fed to us over the next week or thereabouts. Here's a fella called Paddy Hanna. This is Yellow Buffalo.
Do you ride a yellow buffalo? Do you ride a yellow buffalo? Do you think it's wiser giving in to misers, shuffling yourself home? Do you think you're Stevie Nicks reborn? Do you think you're Stevie Nicks reborn? Do you play piano, walk a crooked narrow, a few screws loose on the shoe? There is a perfect place. There is a perfect time to live in someone else's head. Dance the Champs-Élysées. Do you ride a yellow buffalo? the freedom mall? Do you walk along the passage? Do you walk along the passage? Do you smoke the right way? Flick your ash in the shade, blow them kisses on. There is a perfect place. There is a perfect time to live in someone else's head. Dance the songs of leaves. Do you ride a yellow buffalo? Do you ride a yellow buffalo? Will the Easter bunny drown itself in honey right before your eyes? Do you ride a yellow buffalo? Do you ride a yellow buffalo? Do you pay for sunshine, showering in blood white, right from Corsica? Well, do you ride a yellow buffalo? Do you ride a yellow buffalo? Will you be a low-show fountain of the Pueblo? Dig the deepest hole.
It's called Yellow Buffalo, Paddy Hanna from Dublin. Nice song. He's got a great voice, hasn't he? And lots going on behind him there as well. South African President F.W. de Klerk tried to persuade Taoiseach Charles Haughey that lifting the ban on South African fruit and vegetables would help black people in his country. De Klerk's visit to Dublin in April of 1991, 3 years before he was succeeded by Nelson Mandela, was hugely controversial. I remember it. But Haughey argued that de Klerk was helping to dismantle apartheid and should be supported. De Klerk tried to persuade the Taoiseach that lifting the ban on South African fruit and vegetables would benefit many thousands of families, mainly black. I mentioned Bushmills whiskey to you. This, by the way, from State Papers released over the last few days, and there's a few more days of getting information and stuff as well. So I'm looking forward to trawling through those. Bushmills whiskey found itself subject to boycotts from both sides of the political divide in Northern Ireland in the mid-1990s. Traditionally an exclusively Protestant firm, Bushmills had begun to change after being bought by Irish distillers, but was still the target of a boycott because of alleged sectarian employment practices organised by the United Irish Societies in San Francisco from January of 1996. Now, the company was very worried by the boycott and enlisted the help of the Department of Foreign Affairs to try and end it. And then it was hit by a ban by DUP Mayor of North Down, a lady by the name of Ruby Cooling, after the company signed a sponsorship deal with the GAA. There was no winning, was there? Councillor Cooling had formed in these matters. She later insisted on bringing her own tea bags to functions in Bangor Castle because she said fair trade tea tasted foul. Of course, we've become so politically correct now, haven't we? We have a casual invitation, this is brilliant, to visit Ireland put the Department of Foreign Affairs in a spin back in early 1992 because the people involved made it a special case. The invitation had been extended in January of 1992 by media magnate Tony O'Reilly to the president of Zimbabwe, Robert Mugabe, whose first wife had just died. President Mugabe decided to take up O'Reilly's suggestion, though he unfortunately didn't have his phone number. His High Commissioner in London then contacted the Irish Embassy looking for O'Reilly's number or alternatively for hotel recommendations. The ambassador thought he might have been angling for official hospitality for the president, which officials in Dublin didn't think was possible at short notice. Fortunately, Tony O'Reilly was contacted and offered the president the use of his home or luxury hotels and even his private plane during his trip to Ireland, much to the relief of the mandarins in Ivy House. Of course, Tony O'Reilly was the man that started Ryanair, wasn't? Oh, no, he wasn't. That was Tony Ryan, I beg your pardon. Tony O'Reilly had been playing rugby and all that kind of stuff for years. And, Indeed, 1992 media magnate at the time. He was too, definitely. All righty, I think it's time to take a quick break. I hope you're getting yourself organised and settled for our story about cuddles from Nurka, because it's coming up just after these.
Live on Eire, presented by Ger Sweeney.
You're welcome back to the programme. Now, Cuddles from Nurka was the brainchild of Mary Custers McCarthy, and she was trying to do something extremely helpful and charitable and kind. It's all the same words. And I've told you about it before. In fact, we even tried to help her out by looking for people that might be able in a position to get the cuddles to Ukraine. But I met with Mary back in November. I sat with her at her home in Nurka, and that's where we start this conversation with Mary Custers McCarthy. Let's take a listen. And firstly, I asked her where the whole idea came from.
I was watching the news, obviously, as everybody else was, and there was a scene on where a bunch of children and people were in a basement, and the shelling was happening. And an aid worker passed by this little boy who looked up and held up his hand to give a high five. And the aid worker high-fived the little boy and then walked on. And the little boy was sitting there looking lost with his hands still in the air. And I thought, wouldn't it have been something great if that aid worker was able to hand him something to cuddle? And then I thought, okay, I'll try and gather some cuddles together and see what happens. And it went from there.
So what steps did you take? Firstly, you had to decide, I'd like him to have something to cuddle. So that had to be a toy of some kind or a stuffed animal of some kind. Take us through your thought process. When you went into bed that night, you lay there and you thought, what can I do and how can I do it? And more importantly, who can I get to help me maybe?
There were pick-up points here at the time, collecting food and medicine to go to the Ukraine. So I went around and I asked some of those pick-up points if they would be willing to accept soft toys, cuddly toys, and they said yes. I had a few, and friends quickly gave me, and I asked a professional photographer to come and take some photographs, which he did, made up a flyer for me, which went to the pick-up points. And I couldn't hand out flyers on the street or anywhere like that without permission from the town hall, which I actually didn't get. But anyway, because the priority, rightly so, was medicine and food. So I had the flyers, and the next thing, the toys started coming. People donated, and some very emotional toys were handed over. I hate to call them toys because they're really cuddles.
Had you any expectation as to maybe how many? Did you want to gather 25? Did you want to gather 100? Or had you set your sights on making many children happy?
I would have been happy to have 60,000. Could spread the word maybe to toy shops and all over. And maybe it would start coming from Dublin, from New York, from Birmingham, that the idea could be picked up and that every child there could have a soft toy to cuddle. But I was happy, very happy with the 2,000 from Eire.
Every one of those 2,000 cuddles that are now in Ukraine and in the hands and the arms of Ukrainian children, they all have their own story. Tell us a few of those.
There was one old lady, I'm an old lady myself, but there was one old lady who went into the bookshop with a bag and took a big, big teddy bear out of her bag. She hugged him with tears running down her face and said, he has been my best friend for over 70 years, and I want him, a little child, to have him as a best friend for the next 70, and handed him over. Gentleman in the bookshop, Mark, was crying when he was telling me that story. There was another, and it was a gentleman who handed over his dead wife's teddy bear. Again, with tears in his eyes. Single mother met me one day carrying some toys back, and I explained what I was doing. She went home and told her 9-year-old daughter the story, who had been all knew the news about the war happening. Little daughter stood up, didn't say a word, went upstairs and packed a box of her soft toys to give to the sad children. Then there's another one who's handed over, again, a teddy bear that her dead partner had given her on her 40th birthday, and she's now 70. Wow. and she handed him over. So there was a lot of emotion involved. And then some school children got together and each one brought in a soft toy for my collection. Another lady whose daughter that I know, and she told her mother, who's well in her 80s and bad eyesight and all that sort of thing. Her daughter told her the story of what I was doing, and her mother spent almost 6 weeks crocheting 18 soft toys, and they are absolutely works of art. They're beautiful. Really very emotional, the whole thing.
How long did it take you from when it started until the cuddles left Nurka?
8 months.
Now, in that 8 months, you had an accumulating number of cuddles, toys in your apartment. I saw some of the pictures and they were scary. Stephen King, as you told me, would have been very at home in this place when they were here, and you're absolutely right. But you were looking after a little dog as well, so you got a little fright on a couple of occasions.
I did. The toys accumulated and people said, why don't you put them into bags and I'll help you pack them. I said, no, I'd rather look at Mickey Mouse smiling at me or Bugs Bunny or something than a black plastic bag in my apartment. So I was happy to have them all over the floor and up the stairs and on the sofas and everything. But I had a friend's little dog, little teacup terrier, staying with me during all that time. And she would go off and sleep in the middle of them. And I would be walking around and the toys would start moving and I would think, oh Jesus, Stephen King has arrived. They're all moving. They're talking to me. So I had quite a few kind of scares with them, but they were well worth it, well worth it.
You said it was 8 months that you had the toys in your apartment and you moved heaven and earth to try and get them to Ukraine because you knew you could gather them. You knew you could hold on to them. But when you started this process, you didn't realize how difficult it was going to be to actually get them to Ukraine. What efforts did you make, firstly?
I went to the town hall. I went to all the delivery places that were taking medicine and food. And they all explained as nice as possible and I understood absolutely. The priority had to be given to medicine and life-saving food. Then I had people promising that, I have a friend with a van, he might come and this, that and the other. And the other thing, because my phone number and email and that were out there for people to contact me, I had several very weird and strange phone calls and emails from people calling themselves, we're in the name of Jesus and the Lord, the gates of heaven will open for you. If you make a slight donation, we can pick up the toys. I said, well, I'm sorry, but I really don't want to go to heaven because I wouldn't know anybody. Thank you very much for your call. Now bugger off. So I had a lot of those kind of things. And then people saying, a friend of mine is in Spain and can pick them up in the next couple of days. And, okay, are you connected with an orphanage? What's your connection? Well, we'll take them somewhere in the area of, thank you very much. Bye. So I had a lot of that. And as I say, false promises as well. So it was kind of a bit of a dead end. And I was here surrounded by Stephen King and his family and accumulating more as it went on.
In the meantime, had you been trying to figure out, if I do manage to get transportation, where are they going to go? Did you have all of that work to do as well, or did that come after you found the transportation?
The truth of that is, I had no idea.
Okay, so Q2 midlife bikers. How did you get to know about them?
I was here very, very, frustrated with all the letdowns and dead ends and what have you. And a German friend who is a biker stopped in and he was joking about all the toys and the floor and the whole place crowded. And I said to him, wouldn't you get some of your biker friends to take these for me to the Ukraine? And he laughed. And that was the end of that. And I was sitting here thinking, I remember reading somewhere about Hell's Angels doing some good charity work and what have you. And I got online and I was looking for Hell's Angels in Spain. And I came across midlife bikers who had done a charity run last year, a couple of years ago, collecting for Alzheimer's. And I thought, I'll get in touch with them.
Angus Charlton and Hedley Smith. We'll start with you, Angus, if we can, please. Are you daft?
definitely after the occasion. Before the occasion, I just thought it was a rather long ride and to help deliver some teddy bears in Ukraine. A hell of an experience for us. Also a very uplifting experience to see the Ukrainian people, see their spirits, see how positive they are about everything.
Hedley, you're welcome. What possessed you to do this?
Well, it was Angus just continuously pestering the life out of me to do this challenge. He kept going on and on and on about it. And we haven't ridden for a while. And I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. You know, as long as you get off your backside and start doing some more riding and we'll do some more adventures together. So come on. And he's gone along with a lot of my crazy ideas. And so I thought, okay, I'll go along with one of his. I never sort of for one moment thought it would be as crazy as it actually was.
Tell us about the midlife bikers. Who wants to take that one?
Angus and I have known each other for 35 years now. We're sort of lifelong friends. We both come from the same town near Newcastle, a little place called Hexham. Both passionate about motorbikes. We did our first ride about 3-4 years ago where I rang him up out of the blue and said, look, I'm going to America next week to ride across America from LA to Miami. And he went, I'm coming. He joined me from the Philippines. He flew across and we rode across America together. Didn't even take any cameras. We just did it with phones and stuff like that. We got a lot of people started following it and it sort of just developed from there, really. You know, it's sort of two daft sort of Geordie guys in the mid-50s that are just going to, you know, enjoying riding motorbikes and seeing interesting things and meeting interesting people. That's what we do, you know.
First of all, I emailed and then I phoned them. And this was back in August. There was a bit of a delay in between. And then in October, I sent them an email and I said, are you in or out? That was, I think, on the Saturday. And on Monday night, I was sitting here thinking, okay, that's the end of that. What else can I think about? And the phone rang and it was Angus to say that Hedley would come down on the Tuesday to meet with me and see what we could do.
I remember I was in my garage working on my motorbike and she rang me. And I thought it was a wind-up. Why would an old Irish lady ring me and ask me to take 2,000 teddy bears to Ukraine? And that was kind of at the height of the war as well. I said I'd look into it. And then she rang me a few days later and said, have you thought about it? And I went, yeah, okay, I'll do it. But I need to find someone else to go with me. It's not particularly safe on my own.
The first thing I did, I actually went to visit Mary after we'd agreed to do it. I was at Angus's house, so on the way back from Angus's, I called in to see her, saw all these teddy bears in her house, and I'm thinking, how on earth are we going to get these teddy bears on this bike? So we sort of did a practice run where you get these sort of vacuum bags. We managed to get about 100 teddies in a big bag and then vacuum it down. And the idea was maybe we could get 6 or 7 bales on each bike. We couldn't actually get the full 2,000 teddies on the bike. We had to send some to Warsaw and then we took them in from there. We got about 1,200, I think, on the bike in all.
In preparation for their arrival, you knew that they were going to have to try and pack 2,000 cuddles onto 2 motorcycles.
Right.
And you knew that the street in which you live is a narrow street and they would have to park a long way away. And anybody that knows anything about Spain will know that the police take a very dim view of anybody that would be causing a bit of a nuisance or blocking traffic or things. So it wasn't going to be easy for you to load these onto the bicycles. So what did you do?
I had a professional photographer come and take photographs of all the cuddles. So I had a little album made up and I thought, okay, I'll go up to the police and I'll see if I can pull their heartstrings and let the bikes be outside my front door on Tuesday. Luckily, a friend came with me who speaks fluent Spanish and explained to the desk sergeant what it was all about, showed him the album of the photographs, and he called down the chief. The chief came down. Again, my friend explained in Spanish what it was all about and that we were having these big bikes come on Tuesday to load up and so on, and a narrow street, and could they park outside my door and so on. Showed the album of the photographs to the chief, and my friend nudged me and said, look, the chief had tears running down his face. Told the desk sergeant to do whatever, and gave us permission to close the street for traffic from 12 to 1:30 on the day.
What were your thoughts sending, and I know they went voluntarily, but 'twas your mad idea that was sending them off to a war zone?
They're 2 family men with children of their own, and I was asking them to risk their lives almost. But I did say to them, I could possibly arrange that somebody would come out from the Ukraine and meet them on the Polish border so they could hand over the cuddles. And both said, no, we want to go and see the children receiving them. So they were quite up for going into the Ukraine.
What did you have to do then to smooth their passage for them? Did you have to contact agencies, or what did you have to do?
When the boys asked me, did I know exactly where they were going to, I said, oh yes, yeah, but I really didn't.
Angus and I have done lots of long distance riding before, and we very much we don't plan a lot, we just go. And then, because the minute you start planning it, the minute you're under pressure to be at a certain location by a certain time or what have you, we literally just know the route, and we draw a line from there, A to B, and we just head off. And then we take it from there, and some days we want to ride for hours and hours, some days we're tired, so it's, there is not a lot of planning. The only planning that went into it was really how are we going to get the teddy bears on, and then just ride from there and see it how it comes,
How long did it take you to pack the bikes and with these 1,200 teddy bears?
That was possibly the most stressful thing, because there was loads of people there trying to help sort of get involved. And so the teddy bears weren't really packed properly initially. They were putting them into bags. They weren't getting vacuumed right. Bags were bursting and air was getting in them, and it was all going to pot. We were loading the bikes up and it was all tight, and then they'd all start expanding, and we're like, oh my God. So what we did was we thought, let's just get out of here. We got as many on as we could. And fortunately, the route to the Ukraine goes past Angus's house. So we went back to Angus's house, took them all off again, repackaged them properly, vacuumed them properly, taped them up with strong tape so they couldn't expand even if the bags did burst. And that process took hours, by which time it was dark. So we stayed the night at Angus's and then started the ride the following morning very early.
Okay, so what was your route? How did you get from Spain to Ukraine?
We went Barcelona, then through France, Switzerland, Germany, and across to Poland.
You had 5 borders to cross. Had you any problems with 2 motorcycles laden with teddy bears? There could have been anything inside in those bags.
Switzerland stopped us, and they couldn't believe what we were doing when we told them. We could have been carrying anything, but they were, we just said, look, teddy bears for Ukraine. And we had a lot of stickers on the bike saying, cuddles from near her. And the flags of Spain, the Union Jack flag, and the Ukrainian flag, and actually flags flapping on our bikes as well. So
right.
And then the biggest problem was the Ukrainian border, which they're very ashamed about. This rather zealous customs guard wanted to charge us duty for taking the teddy bears in.
Really?
And that got pretty out of hand. Until I put into my translator that we'd ridden 4,000 kilometres. We'd come all the way from Spain. If he's going to charge us, we're going to turn around. And President Zelensky wouldn't be pleased. And I translated that on my phone and showed it to him. He looked at us, went away and stamped everything and said, off you go.
And thank you very much. You got some assistance, or you got some direction from a charity on the ground, am I right?
Thursday morning, Bernard Kavanagh, who's from Gorey originally, but living here in Spain, he called me with a number that I could contact. And I got in touch with this gentleman who was in Warsaw. He's Warren Keynes, is his name, and he's been working there with the volunteers since the war began. Spoke to him, and he said, no problem. He made all the arrangements, got the papers for them for the border, the clearance, everything. And they were met in Warsaw when they arrived by these people. They couldn't be more helpful. It was fantastic.
Charity's called Be a Hero. These guys were spectacular. To be honest, without Be a Hero, we wouldn't have got in and out the way we did. They had just set the whole job up, our papers to cross the border, who we're going to meet in Lviv, tour around the next day, papers to get out quickly because of, the situation. Excellent. What an outfit, superb.
So when you crossed into Ukraine, where did you go first?
We went direct to Lviv, which takes about an hour and a half from the border. Well, you're met at the border by military first. Military into the border checkpoint, out the border checkpoint. Then you start seeing at least 5 kilometres worth of tailback of trucks. That's both sides of the border. And then you start seeing military checkpoints. So we were briefed how to approach those, especially at night. But when we got to the city and, a nice hotel, it seemed reasonably normal until they said that the bomb shelter was on the, 3rd floor down.
the first encounter that you had with the children of Ukraine, which was the mission, was to get the cuddles to the children?
What happened was that we met a priest who was a real cool guy, actually, quite a young priest who very proactive in Lviv and an area with children. And he advised us that it was best that we went to an orphanage that was out of town rather than the centre of Lviv, because the ones in Lviv are quite taken care of. Right. It's the ones in the countryside that are really struggling, where they don't really have anything. So he took us, it was nearly an hour and a half's ride, 100 kilometres away, to this place way in a rural location. There was 100 kids in this orphanage that were very, very well looked after. I'm not going to, they were very well looked after, but it was heartbreaking stuff. I mean, these are kids that were all been displaced because of war, and it was heartbreaking to see. I mean, both Angus and I had a moment that we had to go outside and pull ourselves together and come back in again, and then because we're both fathers, we're both, see that. And but the kids were so well behaved, I couldn't believe it. They were like, very disciplined and hello, and they give them all teddies, and they were all very grateful, and it was very moving, to say the least.
One of you was mistaken for somebody's papa, am I right?
That was me. Yeah, that set me off. She was very cuddly. She kept coming up to me, running up to me, cuddling me, and playing with my beard. She was calling me daddy, so dada. So, I mean, that set me away anyway. That was when I had to go outside. I said, oh, hang on a minute, I need to, I had a few tears outside. And another occasion, a little 3-year-old stood up and sang the Ukrainian national anthem to us from start to finish, and that was heartbreaking as well,
Do you get a sense that they're traumatized by this, or being children, being resilient, are they just accepting each day as it comes and what comes with it?
The children aren't 100% sure what's going on, and they try to keep that away from them. Even the other place that we went, where they were in the centre of the building, away from the windows during the strike period, they were just trying to keep them happy. The adults and the people of Ukraine, I don't think they're traumatised. I think they're angry, and they're very courageous, and they're a bit like Second World War spirit, although we weren't there then. But that kind of thing, I didn't see anyone traumatised or any sign of fear at all. They were really, courageous. Let's go get them kind of attitude.
I saw some of your videos on Facebook, and you were very happy and delighted with life as you progressed along the way. And in one part, if I recall correctly, one of you mentioned that Lviv was a relatively quiet spot because there hadn't been a missile strike for a long time. However, you rounded a corner on a particular day. What happened?
Yeah, so the day we decided to distribute teddy bears is the day that Russia decides to send in around 100 cruise missiles into Russia. I think it was the second biggest strike of the war. I was like, oh my God. Because of course, Angus has persuaded me to do this. It was all his fault. Everything that was going on was all his fault. And I'm looking at him going, what have you got me into? I mean, I knew this was a stupid idea, thing. But as it happened, the cruise missile strike, I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's what really brought it home. That was the thing, was like, oh my God, like earth shaking, the feeling, the blast, the sound that these things make when they strike is phenomenal. And that was, I know it sounds mad, but that's really what made the trip, to be honest, was that whole experience that we're actually part of seeing this terrible war,
And Mary, what were your thoughts when you heard that a missile had landed not too far from them?
I felt sick to my stomach. I had put these men in danger. I had tried to tell them that in a war situation, anything can happen from one minute to the next. I was in shock and sick to my stomach that if anything happened to these two guys, I was completely responsible.
I've never been in a war situation. I've never had my life at risk. I've never had, it been in and around missiles coming in or what have you. And yeah, I mean, we were shook up, definitely. Something I'll never forget. But we kept calm. We're not. We're grown men. We didn't run around like headless chickens. What was weird was we wanted to get underground. We wanted to go to a bomb shelter, but nobody else did. They were all going, no, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Just stand in the car park. It'll be fine, And we were with this priest that was funny. He said, don't worry. You're with me. You're with God. And Angus went, aye, great. But do you know where the bomb shelter is?
Angus, to you, the question, did you fear for your life?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think we both did. We knew it was very, very close to us. I've been in some dodgy places on construction sites in Tajikistan and the Afghan border, and that's more a terrorism threat, which is a completely different feeling to Mr. Putin sending in 3 ballistic missiles, you know? So, yeah, we were both shaken. And when we got back to the hotel, we were still sort of shaking. That was a good few hours later. So I did, and it was very personal. It's a very personal attack. If someone, you know, targets you, he wasn't targeting us, but he was targeting very close to us with missiles. So, yeah.
And did it change you, having experienced it?
Yeah, absolutely. I've seen some bombs go off in Indonesia and some controlled explosions in Tajikistan. This was 3 huge blasts that moved our bikes and actually moved us. Yeah, it does change you. It's hard to say how we've changed, but I'm sure that we're both changed people from the experience of meeting the children and the Ukrainian spirit, the Ukrainian people.
How long did you spend distributing the toys to the children?
We spent a full day from 8 o'clock in the morning till about 7 o'clock at night distributing the teddies to 3 different homes. There was a surplus which we gave to the priest, which he distributed the following day. I'm not going to kid you. We took it to see. We were going to do some more distribution the following morning, and we thought, let's get out of here quick. And possibly the funniest bit, and for me, I think what was more scary was the next day was when, you know, we were going to leave the hotel, and we were told we couldn't leave because the border was closed. Because a bomb struck into Poland, didn't it? You know, it was one went into Poland right on the border where we were crossing. We're thinking, what on earth are we going to do? Next thing you know, on the tannoy in the hotel, the lady's saying, there's another airstrike. Please make your way down to the bomb shelter on -3. And then Angus's phone's going off. He's got one of these apps on his phone that tells you when there's a potential airstrike coming in. And Angus said, come on, we've got to go down the air shelter. I said, sod that, get on the bike and let's get the hell out of here now. And he's going, no. I said, you can stop here if you want. I'm out of here. And I'm like, and so he went, yeah, come on, let's go. So we threw everything on the bike and charged out of the city. And that was really quite disturbing because we could get out. You know, we were on our bikes and we're getting out, but everyone else had to stay. And they're all you know, thinking what's going to hit next. And we luckily were in the position to get out of town, and we did. And they had to face the consequences, and we could get away from it all. We felt a bit guilty about that, actually.
Yeah, that was another tearful moment, really. You know, we would have been safer in the hotel, as I suggested, but we needed to get out that day. The next day it snowed by chance, and we would not have got out on our bikes. We would have had to drive a car at the border. Can't get a commercial flight or anything like that out of there. So I think the angels were looking down on us when we got out. But it was very, very sad leaving absolutely wonderful people who we've met.
Tell me the story of running out of petrol and how you solved it. Angus. Hedley's got a bigger bike than me with a bigger tank. So I'm always running out of petrol. He isn't. And I only had 60 kilometres to get. It wouldn't have got us anywhere near the border. And so I had 2 families stay with me in Spain right at the beginning of the war. And I've kept in contact with them. And one of them's got a lot of government connections. And I rang my wife and said, you know, we're not coming out tomorrow. There's going to be more airstrikes. There's no power, la-di-da. And then, so she rang this woman from the family. And she made a phone call. And within half an hour, someone in Lviv delivered us 20 litres of petrol. Incredible.
Unbelievable.
Incredible.
Yeah, and she's not even from Lviv. She just, I don't know how she did it. I still haven't found out how she did it. And we got enough between us to get out over the border.
Angus, would you do it again?
Oh, yeah. As dangerous as it was, I would do it again. Yeah. See those kids' faces, you know?
I'd do it again, no problem. Yeah, definitely. The bomb thing was scary, but you'd be pretty unlucky to have one hit you. The city of 2 million people, you know, they weren't bombing hotels and buildings. They were going for facilities, you know, to interrupt the Ukrainians' lives. You know, there was no electricity in Lviv for, you know, so all the petrol stations were down and we're in darkness. The city of 2 million people in darkness. The Ukrainians were like, yeah, very good. Is that the best you can do? And they fixed it, you know, by the next morning. You know, they just shrugged it off, you know.
Looking back on it, Hedley, what's the biggest takeaway in all of this for you?
Well, it was meeting the Ukrainian people that are inspirational. Quite frankly, they're so resilient and tough, and they shrug everything off. But, you can see all these things on the telly, but when you're there and you're breathing it and you're feeling it and you're seeing it, it's a totally different matter. It was a personal challenge as well in terms of long distance motorbike riding. It gives you a long time to, when you're on a bike for that length of time on your own, it gives you a long time to think about things. It's quite therapeutic, actually, the whole thing. And but mega experience, and I know I said I wouldn't go, but I'm pleased I did, and so I would do it again. If Angus comes up with another mad idea, I'll consider it this time. See what he comes up with next.
Angus, the biggest takeaway on this trip for you?
The biggest thing is how millions of people's lives are affected by the actions of one man or one country, and how devastating war is, and how appalling it is, and these children's lives are changed forever. A lot of them, they've lost their mums and dads in the war. That is the biggest thing that I got from it, is how terrible war is.
You've got a Facebook page, it's called Midlife Bikers. You've got a YouTube channel, I believe, as well. You're putting together a video of your trip, and that will be online very soon.
Yeah, that's correct. We're meeting next week to edit it. It'll take us a few days to edit it all down. And we'll probably put, 3 20-minute videos out there of all the bits from the riding, meeting, everything. It'll all be online soon.
Okay. Listen, gentlemen, it's been lovely talking to you. The Midlife Bikers based in Spain. Thank you to Angus Charlton and to Hedley Smith. Enjoy your rest, and hopefully the next adventure won't be as troublesome, and there won't be cruise missiles involved in the whole thing. And well done on a job well done as well, lads.
Thanks very much to you for having us on your show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
What would you say to the two boys, to Hedley and to Angus, for doing what they did?
Thank you doesn't say it. I think the smiles on the children's faces say it. If they hadn't been there, those little children would have been in that shelter, just looking into space, like the little boy holding his high five up with nothing. They were there smiling, playing with the toys, cuddling. That's why they did it, and that's why I'm so grateful to them. So my thank you doesn't come into it. It's from the children, I think.
How do you feel?
Very emotional about the whole thing. I'm glad I did it, and I would hope that other places would pick up this idea and send cuddles. Food and medicine, the normal adult people will think of those. But people like me should think of the children. Box of medicine and food mean nothing to a little child. But Mickey Mouse coming out, or a little rabbit, or a little squirrel, little teddy bear, can make a difference to a sad child.
Listen, oh listen to all of the children, to all of the children believing in you. Listen, oh listen to all of the children, to all of the children who know what is true. Listen to all of the laughter, to all of the laughter that makes the world sing. Listen, oh listen to all of the laughter that children can bring. Listen, oh listen to all of the children, to all children believing in you. Listen, oh listen to all of the children, to all of the children who know what is true. Listen, oh listen to all of the laughter, to all that makes the world sing. Listen, oh listen to all of the laughter that children can bring. All of the world
Listen to the children. You know, they really believe in you. Listen. Listen to their laughter. Listen to the children. They know what's true.
That's a song that's called Listen to the Children. It was, I suppose, one that I thought would be ideal coming out of that particular story. Red Hurley, our good pal on the programme, Red Hurley, and Listen to the Children. Thank you again to Mary Custers McCarthy, to Angus Charlton and Headley Smith for telling us their story. And if the reaction is anything to go by, well then, it's gone down an absolute storm. So thank you very much indeed. And as I said in the interviews with the two boys, congratulations on a job well done. Well, same to Mary Custers. A beautiful idea, and you'd never know, one that might catch on and gather legs as we go along. She didn't think she was getting those 2,000 teddy bears or cuddles to Ukraine, did she? Fair play to the boys for stepping in. Right. Didn't I tell you you'd like that story? Good. I see that Eire, the bus company, has reported a strong return to pre-COVID passenger levels for 2022. It reported 89.5 million passenger journeys for the full year, despite some pandemic impact in the first 2 months of the year. The company made 57.5 million passenger journeys in 2021. The Eire operates more than 225 million kilometres, wow, during 2022, the largest public transport network in the country. This includes more than 220 Eire and expressway routes and more than 8,000 school transport routes. Eire operates the city services of Cork, Galway, Limerick and Waterford town services in Athlone, Balbriggan, Drogheda, Dundalk, Navan and Sligo, as well as county and regional services. All are under contract to the National Transport Authority. It also operates Expressway, the largest commercial interregional coach service in the country with 14 routes, and the school transport scheme on behalf of the Department of Education. For the past number of months, Eire noted that overall road passenger numbers are 15% higher than in 2019. The services, which have been the largest increase in, the largest increase in passenger journeys compared to 2019 include Route 115 services between Mullingar and Dublin and Route 303 services in Limerick City. Both have between 40 to 60% more passengers now than in 2019. Eire hired 215 new drivers to join its workforce during the year, with plans to recruit even more next year. That's good news. The exceptional growth in passenger demand for our services is explained by a number of factors, said Stephen Kent, the chief executive of Eire. First, we are operating more and better services following National Transport Authority investment. Typically, when additional services are introduced, passenger numbers increase by up to 70% within a year, he explained. Secondly, the government's 20% fare reduction and 50% reduction on young adult leap cards means that public transport represents extraordinary value, bringing fares to what they were 20 years ago, at a time when the cost of motoring is higher than ever and people are facing cost of living pressures, the CEO said. And finally, there's an increasing interest in sustainable modes of transport, and some people people are very consciously choosing public transport options, he added. So there we go. That's it. I must admit, I've taken a few bus journeys myself this year. I have, and I wouldn't have been on a bus really a whole lot prior to that. But what did I do? Three bus journeys. I did one return and one single journey in the last number of months. So yeah, so when you see that, you can kind of understand, can't you? So well done, Bus Chairman. Another good news story from them. I'm glad to hear it too. I suppose this might be appropriate to play. It comes from Niamh Dunn. If I'm not mistaken, PJ Curtis, you remarked on this when I played it the first time round back in November.
Well, I've crossed every mountain and I've woven every stream. I spent my days a-roving round the roads of Old Tralee. I have many stories and perhaps I will avail, and I'm sure you'll not deny me as I tell to you my tale. My Nancy, she is far away and lives beyond the sea. My heart is sore to marry her, but it may never be. I met her in the summertime, my darling Nancy Brown, and we spent our days a-courting as I rode from town to town. Hey, rocks for the dairy-o, rocks for the dairy-o, falled all the day. Me rocks for the dairy-o, we'll marry in the morning.
When first I chanced upon her, oh, she wore the finest clothes. Her smile, it did beguile me, and her eyes were black as sloes. She had such a manner, held her shoulders straight with pride, and I knew this girl with ringlet curls, oh, she would be my bride. My darling, may I follow you? I'll buy a ring of gold. Will you take my hand, my love, and hear what I propose? My heart belongs to you, she said, but this can never be, for I'm promised for another love all in America.
He rocks for the dairy-o, rocks for the dairy-o, falled all the day. He rocks for the dairy-o, we'll marry in the morning.
Been a rover, now I roam across the sea, and first I land in Amsterdam, so far from Old Tralee. I drank down beer and brandy as our captain did us guide on our ship bound for America across the ocean wide. I asked if she would marry me and home we could return. Oh Nancy dear, for many years my heart for you did yearn. Oh and yes, she said, now let us wed and follow o'er the tide. By morning time, oh you'll be mine and I will be your bride.
He rocks for the dairy-o, rocks for the dairy-o, falled all the day. He rocks for the dairy-o, we'll marry in the morning. Now this couple, they are married, in Kerry they do dwell, with a cabin down in Ventry Town, so far as I may tell. And they were so two-hearted when she landed on the quay, when I made her met her over on the roads of Old Tralee. The dairy-o, rocks for the dairy-o, fall all the day. He rocks for the dairy-o, we'll marry in the morning. He rocks for the dairy-o, rocks for the dairy-o, fall all the day. He rocks for the dairy-o, we'll marry in the morning.
It's called Roads of Old Tralee. That is Niamh Dunn. Nice. She got a lovely voice, doesn't she? Absolutely. Nice and pure, as the fella says. We're nearly done and dusted. I was looking at the RTE website a little earlier on, and they have an entertainment section, as you can imagine, them being Ireland's national broadcaster. Well, they have published the top 10 most read stories of the year on their entertainment section. I couldn't believe some of them. Number 10, Ireland misses out on a place in Eurovision Grand Final. In May, Ireland's Eurovision hopeful Brooke Scullion lit up the stage in Turin during the song contest's second semi-final, but failed to land a spot in the Grand Final. At number 9, a tragic story. In April, the death was announced of Irish actress Melanie Clark Pullum, best known for her role as Mary Flaherty in EastEnders from 1997 to 1999. She was 46 and had been battling cancer. The Rose of Tralee made it at number 8. In August, Rachel Duffy was crowned the 2022 Rose of Tralee, becoming the first Rose representing Westmeath to take the title. At number 7, in June, Bono revealed that he had a half-brother whom he only learnt about himself as an adult. He said he's pure mad about him. More sad news, the 6th most read story in the entertainment section on the RTE website. In August, Olivia Newton-John's family announced that she had died at the age of 73. At number 5, I can't pronounce this lady's name. She was an actress and she had a bad car crash in the Mar Vista area in Los Angeles. Anne Heche. Is it Heche or H? I don't know. I apologise. I'm not familiar with her. At number 4, it was the death of singer Meat Loaf at the age of 74. Strictly Stars confirmed their romance at number 3. Yeah, big news. Seriously. All right. Moving swiftly along, the jury awards Depp 15 million, Heard 2 million in defamation fight. That was the second one. Lord save us. And Will Smith hits Chris Rock on the stage during the Oscars was the top one. So there you have it, right? That was that. Okay, that's it. Done and dusted. Thank you again to Mary Custers McCarthy, Angus Charlton and Headley Smith, the two boys, the midlife bikers, for telling us the story of Cuddles from Nurka. That's my lot. I'm back with you on Sunday next between 12 and 2. No, between 1 and 3. Irish time and Spanish time. I'm getting confused. And I'm back next week for another live on Eire, despite what Bob might tell you. Thanks as always to our Spanish-Irish cultural advisor, Antonio Sierra. Have a happy new year. When I see you soon. Bye-bye now.
Ger Sweeney presents Live on Eire in association with emeraldconnection.net.
You've been listening to a TRE production. If you've enjoyed this programme, there'll be another episode waiting for you next week, right here on this platform, where you can also access our extensive back catalogue of shows and interviews. For more information on our live programming, social media channels and apps, and how to contact Talk Radio Europe, please visit TRE.radio.